This is a wee talk about the DRO setup on my ShopTask 1720 XMTC lathe mill drill. I added this a couple of years ago with the DRO head, and I now have the glass scales feeding into the CNC equipment so that it can provide feedback for the CNC. The mounting was unusual, so if anyone else has a similar machine, this may be useful to them. Start with the Z-axis. This was the most complicated to set up. It is, I think it's a 300 millimeter. I'll put the specs for the length. These are the cheap glass scales that you get from China. I think I got them on eBay. And mounting here, I have the Z-axis scale going up and down. There we go. It goes up and down and the sensor stays still. This is mounted on a pillar that goes through to there's a metal plate behind here that for mounting the CNC motor drive. So there's a pillar here that runs in between the belt. This mounting here has two screws holding it on to keep it quite rigid. There's one you can see here that goes through like this, but there's another one underneath it that goes in this way, mounting into this block. This goes onto what was originally the depth stop for the drill. Rotated this around. This mounts onto what's an oil cover for the spindle, which originally came with two set screws holding it on, so it kind of rocked back and forwards like this. So I changed that to 3 set screws, and I used got good set screws from McMaster Carr with hex heads. These guys, part number, but these are metric. I think they're 5 millimeter. Focus. These have got little knurls on the tip. And I've replaced a lot of the original set screws on the machine with these. The original ones are crosshead, and these work a lot better. Some places I've put one on top of the other to lock them in place. But that's what we've got here, so that made this very rigid. The other modification was to replace this screw here with one with a dog point on it that fits the groove. Get down here. There's a groove there that fits in. When I originally had it, the whole column would rotate slightly, and that would throw off the sensor on the DRO. So that's now close fitting, so it doesn't have the opportunity to rotate. So that was the most complicated one. The other thing, I've taken the top off here, and this is true of all these scales, is you'll see I have 2 sets of seals on there. The cheap ones that you buy will only have 1 set of seals, and they may be mounted back to front. So you can get more of the sealing stuff by the meter from AliExpress, and then put those in, and that will help keep the dirt out of the scales, because if you get any dirt on the scales, they're probably going to fail. Okay, moving to the table slide, made these end caps here, which support the slide, and then we've got the mounting underneath. Again, took some still pictures earlier of how this is. One of the problems with this is that it does space it out closer to the chuck, so that your my 4-jaw chuck is mounted on 8-inch faceplate, so that will actually hit into this. So I need to get a smaller faceplate for that. But the other thing is, if I were to use a follow rest, which I don't have, that would normally mount here. So I don't have a solution for a follow rest with this mounting. I have considered moving it to this side, but then that would be in the way of the gib adjusters. So I would have to rotate this whole thing to move the gib adjusters to the other side, and then the slide would be in the way of the tailstock coming in for tailstock support and drilling. So not a good solution. The reason for the archway under here is to get to the, it's hard to see under there, there's a nut. There's one on this side as well, that because this table rotates for no apparent reason. So you need to be able to adjust that to get it square. And then at the back, we've got the similar mounting at the back with a mounting there for that's at an angle. The scale itself is mounted flush to the casting, and that's at an angle, so the whole thing's tilted like that, and I have detailed pictures of that. These are all 5 micron scales, which is about 2/10 of a thou, so they're never going to be extremely high accuracy scales, but for this machine, which is not a high accuracy machine in the first place, it's good enough. The other thing you don't get with these cheaper scales is an index mark. So they don't have an index mark, so you can't use them for homing. You have to have separate homing switches or limit switches. I don't have any homing switches currently.